For the recording, welcome back. We are ACI course 7, class 4. This is January 30th, 2025. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion, their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep in our hearts, we know this is possible. Learning about karma and emptiness, we get glimpses into how it's possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. Then turn your mind back to your precious holy being. We know that they know. what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, four lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every single other. Okay. Last class, we learned about the ceremony for actually receiving our vows. And we learned that there are 5 parts to the preliminaries to that ceremony, right? There's the preliminaries, the main event, and the conclusion. And in the preliminaries, there are these 5 different parts that prepare us for receiving the vows. The first is we make that formal request to be granted the vows. Then we invite all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to come witness what we're about to do. Then we take that vow-taking posture and properly make our request to the vow giver, asking to receive the vows quickly, quickly, quickly. There's something important about the quickly part. Fourth, we're instructed to reflect with joy on the opportunity we have, or we will have by getting these vows, for collecting vast amounts of goodness by way of our bodhisattva activity. And then fifth, the vow giver asks, do you really hope to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all living beings? Do you truly want these vows? Do you know what they are? And will you be able to keep them fairly well? And our answers are all in our own mind, right? Or you can whisper. And as long as your own to yourself honest answer is yes, pretty well to all of those questions, then you are primed to receive the vows. Your next quiz question was describe the type of person who can grant those bodhisattva vows. So we learned they could be man or woman, ordained or not. They need to have the vows. They need to be keeping them well. They need to know the ceremony. They need to know the bodhisattva training, right? How to teach bodhisattvahood. And they need to be one who's willing and able to help the student attain their goals, to help the student be able to use their vows to guide their behavior. Then further, they should be someone who is practicing the 6 perfections, but it qualifies this by saying, in the sense of them being satisfied with what they have and what they get. So it's kind of a clue of how we might assess whether someone who we think is on the bodhisattva track. I mean, like, we really don't know anybody's mind, do we? But one of the ways that we can gain confidence in someone is to watch them and see how they respond, in difficult situations, and see how they respond in situations, where there's not enough to go around. In situations that typically would trigger someone's selfishness and need, the what about me? And you watch this person and it's like, wow, their what about me line is like really high. I hardly ever see them do the what about me thing. Like, that would be the kind of person that I would admire and maybe go to for advice. Yeah. And finally, they should have an ability to concentrate and have respect for the Mahayana. Now, we don't really know somebody's ability to concentrate, but we can see by their behavior, their demonstration of their respect for the Mahayana teachings. Then next, we were asked to describe the kind of person who can take the vows, right? Who can get our vows. And that person needs to be someone who really wishes to have them, who has compassion, who knows the vows, and by knowing them, still wants to get them, wants to keep them, and who has already been training themselves in some level of morality, intentional morality training. They say at the very least, practicing avoiding the 10 non-virtues for some period of time. Now that's vague, does that mean a month, 3 months, 6 years, what? The one you go to receive the vows will be the one who assesses whether or not the one who has asked is prepared. That's the job, right, of that vow master. Then lastly, your quiz asks, what are the 4 steps to the conclusion of the ceremony? And the first is that we turn to all those Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and confirm that they have witnessed us swearing our oath to them to keep these behaviors. And then to demonstrate, right, that we make those 3 prostrations in each of the 10 directions. Secondly, the vow master encourages the students in their vows by describing what an incredible good deed we've just done. And the instruction to the vow master is, tell them that there's been an earthquake in Buddha paradises everywhere. And now every Buddha looks upon you, the new one with vows, as one of their very own children. Thirdly, students and vow master alike make a Thanksgiving offering by using the 37 pile mandala prayer and the actual ceremony if you're been taught that. Out of our gratitude for those Buddhas and Bodhisattvas giving us the opportunity to give the vows and to receive the vows. And then lastly, number 4, we are instructed to keep our vows privately, using them to guide our behavior. And it's through our behavior that we show that we have vows to those who know about them. In particular, it points out that we're reminded to never use our bodhisattva vow behavior for our own praise or gain. And it's really curious that they point that out specifically, because it just seems like once we've declared ourselves on our bodhisattva path, bless you, like the risk of self-praise or self-gain would be really low. But our ego self, right, our ignorant, what about me self, is a very slippery character. And all the while that we're like, I have my bodhisattva vows, I'm going to avoid these behaviors, I'm, improving myself so well, there's a part of us that doesn't like that. And that part of us is going to takes delight in tripping us up, fooling us. And so it's something to be on the alert for. And, we may someday find ourselves justifying some behavior, justifying that it somehow is a way of keeping my bodhisattva vows, when really deep down, I just want to get something for me. So it's explaining to us that, yes, we've made major progress to get to the point where we have bodhisattva vows, but don't get complacent. Okay. All right. So at this point, hopefully it comes up in our minds to ask, well, then what are these vows? If I need to know them before I can get them, then, what are they? So we've finally reached this section of this course where we go through these vows one by one and in a certain amount of detail. And I watch my own mind, and my own mind wants this explanation to be really black and white. Tell me what the vow is. Tell me how I avoid it. Tell me what I do when I damage it, and I'll just do that. But we'll see that there are many, many gray areas about the meaning of these vows and how they relate to our actual life situations. And the beauty of that is then that we can see how to actually use them to guide our own behavior. If they were so specific that they only pertain to, a certain kind of situation, and you never found yourself in that situation, you wouldn't know whether you would be able to keep your vow if that situation came up or not. So they sound like they're very specific, but they're meant to pertain to real life and the things that we come across in real life. And then it gets a little harder to really say, have I damaged that vow or not? By the actual meaning, literal meaning of the words, I didn't get close. But what about the subtleties of seed planting, right? And we'll learn how to negotiate that. And of course, how you use your vow master is when you can't figure it out, they're the one you're meant to go to. Now often we get our vows. Like the first time I received my Bodhisattva vows, it was from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And I couldn't, sir, I don't understand how to keep this vow. Can you help me? Right? But he's not available to me. So it's useful to get your vows from someone who is more available to us for when we need, and then use them in that way. All right, so let's get on with it. Bigger, 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 bigger. Here's our entire vocabulary for class 4. Satung and Pampa. So we're talking about the vowed activities of a bodhisattva for the next several classes. Satung means root downfall. Sa means root, and tung means downfall. And there are 18 bodhisattva root downfalls. A root downfall means a behavior that's a really, really serious mistake in our bodhisattva morality. It's a serious mistake because if we fully break one of these 18, we destroy that vow, not that vow. We destroy our bodhisattva vows in our mind stream. So we're going to have 64 bodhisattva vows. 18 are these root downfalls. And the other, whatever number that is called secondary downfalls. When we break one of the 18, it doesn't mean we've also done the wrong behaviors of all the rest. But because we've so seriously disrespected one of those bodhisattva vows, all the rest of them are damaged as well. So when one's broken, and we heard that the benefit of vows is that they're repairable, we repair them all, not just the one that we broke. And Lama Tsongkhapa says, yes, it's true that even if we have fully broken a root downfall, we can take the ceremony again and we can get our vows back. But he says, unfortunately, we that fully breaking a vow does something to our mind that even though we restore our vows, they're not restored to the full glory that they were when we first got them. And as a result, we won't be able to reach the first bodhisattva bhumi in this lifetime, which means that because of the negativity planted by that serious break, we either won't be able to grow our bodhicitta strong enough for our direct perception of emptiness to be imbued with it, or we won't be able to reach the direct perception of emptiness, even if we have bodhicitta strongly. We won't have the goodness to have both happening in that lifetime. It doesn't mean we won't be able to achieve it in another lifetime, even the next lifetime, but not that one in which that new vow was fully broken. So Lama Tsongkhapa's point is not to discourage us. It's actually to encourage us, but to encourage us in such a way that we take this seriously enough, that we don't get sloppy and allow ourselves to fully break a root downfall. That said, it takes a really, really dark and ugly state of mind, heart that's sustained in order to fully break a downfall. And we'll talk about those 4 conditions. So that we understand well what to watch for that could get us close, even close, to fully breaking a root downfall. There are 4 factors that need to be present. And if any one or more of the 4 are missing when we do the deed that's damaging the vow, we haven't fully broken that downfall. We have gathered non-virtue, yes, and we have damaged secondary vows as a result. But it takes these 4 ugly states of mind to fully break a vow. And they're pretty hard to have and sustain for someone who is on their spiritual path sincerely. So we'll see them soon. Then this other vocabulary word, pampa. It means to be defeated. So the root downfall means a behavior that if we do, makes us fall down. And literally it means go to a lower realm. The pampa means defeated. We've been defeated. And we've been defeated means we've been defeated by an enemy. And the enemy, of course, is our own mental afflictions, which is what caused us to do the behavior that broke the vow in the first place. So interestingly, the four most serious, fully ordained monk, I'm going to say, and nun vows are also called pampas, defeats, being defeated. Those four are killing a human, stealing anything of value, sexual intercourse, and lying about one's spiritual attainments. So those are the four worst things that an ordained person could do, any one of which would cause their ordained vows to disappear. So by comparison, the first 18 Bodhisattva vows are given this name as well, Pampa, to indicate the seriousness of breaking them. If we do one of those behaviors of the 18 root downfalls, it means we've been defeated by our enemy mental affliction. And the different vows are behaviors that different mental afflictions motivate. They are considered the root downfalls are considered the heaviest harmful deeds that can be done by a person who's claiming to want to help all beings stop their suffering. The root downfalls and secondary vows are all worded in the negative. We say, I will avoid such and such and such, which is different than saying, I will do such and such and such. So success is actually built in. Because as we've said before, once we take a vow for avoiding certain behaviors, we are keeping the goodness of the vow every moment we're not doing that behavior, regardless of whether we're in a circumstances where we might. And then when we are in a circumstance where we might, right, that's when our ethical choice-making behavior guided by our vows kicks in. But how often is that? Hopefully rarely. And yet, every moment we're gathering the goodness of keeping vows. It's a really powerful tool when we understand. So keeping our vows is gathering goodness fast. And that goodness grows. And when we see ourselves keeping our vows well, Geshe Michael asserts, we will see changes in our life and our circumstances. To keep them well, we need to understand them. And thank goodness, they say, with Bodhisattva vows, learn them, before you decide whether you think you can keep them or not. Which means we can learn them and start to live according to them even before we decide, yeah, I'm going to take these as vows, because I've already shown myself that I can keep them. Yeah, it's nice. Like, thank you, Buddha, for making it so easy, so much easier for us than it could be. All right, so I'm going to get rid of my screen share because we don't need it anymore. And tonight's class, we will cover the first 9 of the 18 root downfalls. So the 18 worst deeds of bodhisattva in the making could do with those 4 ugly states of mind that we haven't heard about yet. I lost train of thought on that sentence. I can't finish it. That we're going to learn to avoid to do, I guess. Anyway, here we go. The first one is called the root downfall of praising yourself and criticizing others. When it's stated like that, it almost sounds like I'm supposed to praise myself and criticize others. But of course, that's not the right understanding. I will avoid the root downfall of praising myself and criticizing others. I've seen people like they get on their social media and post their bodhisattva vow for each day to help others. And they say, bodhisattva vow number 1, praising myself and criticizing others. And anybody who's learned them knows exactly what that person means. But anybody who hasn't learned them would read that and go, wow, this person's going to practice praising themselves and criticizing others. I don't think I want any part of that. So, you're not going to do that. But when you're saying them even to yourself, oh, my bodhisattva vow number 1 is praising others and praising myself and criticizing others, right? Your own mind is hearing those words. Part of your mind knows you mean you're going to avoid that, but that's not what you said, right? So you're going to give confusing messages to your own subconscious if the wording that you use when you recite your vows is imprecise. So I'm going to ask you in Jetsukapian fashion to be precise when you write or say your bodhisattva vows, even to yourself, especially to yourself. I will avoid making that root downfall, that big mistake of praising myself and criticizing others. Now let's see what that really means. It's about a very specific circumstance, and the behavior needs to be motivated in a very specific way under the influence of a specific mental affliction. So this one in particular is motivated by pride, and that pride makes us want to have some self-gain. And under that influence of the self-gain that pride makes us want, we criticize another person, because in doing so, we think that means that we will be seen as better than them. If we point out another person's faults to someone else, that someone else will think more highly of us. That's the mental affliction thinking, right? Wisdom mind goes, that's crazy. Especially if you're criticizing someone to someone who understands anything about karma and emptiness, right? They're going to go, whoa, you just made a big mistake, honey. So, but under those mental afflictions, our rational thinking can fly out the window, which is why this takes training. So in this first root downfall, I will avoid praising myself and criticizing others. There's actually two different actions going on. So when Geshe Michael writes out these 18 root downfalls, there's more than 18 because the first four have two each. And then some of the others, they only are one, but they have three different parts to them. So there's more than 18, but they're just called 18. So this one has the praising myself as one behavior and criticizing or putting down someone else as the second behavior. And either one done under these four ugly states of mind would fully break that first vow, which then means all the rest of them are negated as well, right? I mean, not completely, but to the point where we need to refresh them all. Mm-hmm. That we're doing both of them, praising ourselves and or criticizing another, in order to gain greater respect or admiration for oneself. So now the commentaries go on to express that actually this bodhisattva behavior avoidance is meant for very much more specific circumstance. And that is one Mahayana Dharma teacher to another. So if someone who's sharing Mahayana Dharma praises themselves over some other teacher of the Mahayana, motivated by believing that by doing so, they would get some gain of sponsorship or, increased reputation, that will break the vow if they have those four states of mind. Again, I haven't gotten there yet. Or if that person doesn't praise themselves, but criticizes some other teacher, tries to denigrate their quality of teaching or what they're teaching, that would then draw the person they're talking to admire them more. So both of them are motivated by this wrong pride, which is why they're called one vow, because the mental affliction is the same. To break the vow does not require both. One or the other will do the job. And the one that you are speaking the praise or the criticism to can be anyone who would understand what you're saying. So you don't break the vow if you tell your dog what a lousy teacher that other teacher is. But if you tell a human, right, who understands your words, the human doesn't necessarily need to understand the Dharma, etc. But you could see how it would be a stronger negativity if you, the Mahayana teacher, is talking to another person in the Dharma who understands a bit about karma and emptiness, and you either praise yourself or criticize another, and that person hears and understands, oh, that other person, they're not so good. I should stay away from them. So that the breaking of this vow actually contributes to schism. It's creating divisiveness, motivated by wrong pride, plants the seeds for pulling people apart. Divisiveness and schism. It's a really serious negativity in the mind of someone who claims, I'm going to become a totally enlightened being because everybody's suffering and I'm going to help them stop it. Do you see? So the breaking of the vow occurs when the person that they're talking to hears and understands, oh, this person's better than that one, right? Hears and really misunderstands, but hears and understands that you're praising yourself or understands that you're criticizing another. Now, of course, it's just plain negative karma to praise oneself and criticize others anyway. But it only breaks the vow when it's this circumstance having to do with teachers of the Mahayana. Now, Geshe-la did share that one might find themselves in a situation where they hear another teacher, person, teaching the Mahayana Dharma, what they're calling the Mahayana Dharma, but you recognize that what they're teaching is very mistaken. And one should act to clarify those mistakes, either by debate or by scriptural authority or by having the person who's misteaching show the scriptural authority that they're teaching from. But the state of mind of pointing out the error would need to be out of compassion for them, out of concern for the students, and out of concern for the purity of the Dharma lineage. Not out of, I know better, you've been taught wrongly, right? Letting our puffed up ego take over and have that be what's pointing out the mistake. You see, the words may be the same, the actions may be the same, but the motivation completely different, right? The concern is for the teachings, the student and the teacher, not for showing what we know. Okay. So now, for that deed to actually break the downfall, we need to have these four ugly states of mind or parts of our motivation active and to some extent sustained in order for the vow to be fully broken, a full downfall. the first is that our behavior is done motivated from a really selfish state. Right? That mental affliction is so strong that's making us need to get what we feel is most important for us, right? Is pushing our behavior. Ugly for a bodhisattva, right? A professed bodhisattva, but meaning it must happen. This is the first rude downfall. We must be at risk. Second state of mind is that we do the deed and we're glad that we did it. Third state of mind is we're willing to do it again. And fourth state of mind, when you rethink about having done it, there's no shame. So we'll go through these four again in greater detail. But if you think about it, your intention is colored with selfishness. So you think it's right. And if you think it's right, you do the deed, it gets finished, you're glad you did it. Because you think it's right. It was right to do. I'm glad I did it. I'd do it again. And when I think back about it, yeah, good for me. Right? No shame. And if you think of those different scenarios, strong selfish intent, glad I did it, willing to do it again at the time I did it. But now that I think back about it, ooh, maybe that wasn't the best way to handle it. Right? A little regret, a little shame. With a little shame, a little regret, the full vow is not broken. Did we create a series of really ugly seeds? Yes. Will we want to purify it? Yeah. But we didn't fully break the vow. Do you see the difference? If we do it and we're not glad we are doing it or glad we did it, right? Doesn't fully break the vow. If we do it, but I don't ever intend to do it again, doesn't fully break the vow. Right? We've learned before, a healthy sense of regret is we call it a negative emotion that's a virtue. Because you can see how it's actually protective. It's a protective state of mind to have this little bit of regret. Maybe I'm just not quite doing it well enough. Maybe my bodhicitta is not quite as strong as it could be. We tend to hear regret and it's like, oh, guilt, shame, right? Try to work with that word, regret, and find the feeling that's motivating instead of, putting ourselves down. Because it's so protective of our bodhisattva vows. Now, of course, if we don't ever get close to those behaviors, you don't need regret either. But sometimes those mental afflictions get so strong. So, of course, the bottom line is just avoid praising oneself and criticizing others. And then we won't be tempted to do it when it comes to our spiritual practice. And we'll be not tempted to do it when we're in the position of the teacher either. All right. So again, for breaking this vow, this action of praising self and criticizing others needs to be verbal. Right? Like thinking it in our minds, don't let the thought go on because that'll turn into verbal, but the vow isn't damaged until you say to somebody else, right? Something that qualifies as either praising self or criticizing another. All right. When in ACI, Geshe Michael didn't talk about thinking of these vows in terms of seed planting or thinking of them in terms of what's the opposite of the behavior to be avoided. And as I was working with them in my training, it occurred to me that if I could understand what the opposite behavior would be, and I trained myself in the opposite behavior, I would also be training myself to avoid the negative. And it would be like it's growing something in me as opposed to avoiding perpetuating something in me. So I one day sat down with all my vows and I rewrote them in the positive, which, they'd be unique to me. Everybody who writes their vows and rewords them positively, you're going to have your own take on it. And then when I looked at those, it's like, oh yeah, I can see where those positive behaviors plant the seeds for actually those 5, I can't remember what Geshe calls them, but the abundance, the health and long life, the partnership, the still lake mind, and the save the world. All these vows that are stated in the negative, if you turn them around and do the positive, you can see that different ones would be planting the seeds for one or more of these different 5 results to come, which ultimately the 5 altogether is Buddha you and Buddha paradise emanating. So it really helped me to just do that exercise of seeing what the positive behaviors would be so that I could better avoid the vows that are stated in the negative. Do you see? So, if we grow the habit of praising others and just leaving ourselves out of it completely, we plant these seeds for being respected and admired, and like all the ways that we're praising others, we're going to hear be said about ourselves, even in our own mind, which could become the danger of pride getting strong, right? Right. I planted all these good seeds. Now everybody says how wonderful I am. I must be wonderful. And then we could spiral down unless our emptiness understanding about that wonderful me gets strong as well. Okay. Root downfall number 1. I will avoid praising myself and belittling others, especially teachers to teachers, but anybody. Second one, I will avoid not giving the Dharma or material assistance. So again, we've got 2. Failing to share the Dharma or failing to share material assistance. And again, there are specifics. The person who's requesting the material assistance, they must, for us to break a vow by refusing them, they must be in serious need. And they must be in a position of having no other support system. So Geshe-Li's example is, there's somebody who's got diabetes and their kidneys are failing, and they've lost their job, and they've gone to their family and friends for help, and everybody's tapped out. And they're at the place where they need kidney dialysis twice a week, and they don't have the funds and they can't get there. And they come to you, right, with your bodhisattva vows. And they say, please, can you help me get my dialysis? Then the circumstances for oneself in order to break that vow by rejecting their request is that you actually have the resources to help them. You just don't want to use your resources on their behalf. So the vow is broken only when you are their last resource and you have what they need, but you fail to help them. Now, you could help them get resources from somewhere else. So if you can help them get their need met, you don't have to personally use your resources to avoid breaking the vow. If you can get them to a government agency, right? But you choose not to even help in that way. Out of this motivation of I don't want to part myself from my resources, whether it's my money resources or my time resources. They're in absolute need. You're their only hope. You have the ability to help in one way, shape, or another. And out of stinginess, attachment, you say no. Again, it seems like, how in the world could a bodhisattva ever do that? How often are we in the position where we're the only hope for someone? I don't know that I've ever been in that position. So this means that you don't break a vow when you see somebody in need, and you don't stop your car and go buy them lunch. Right? For this vow to get broken, you have to be specifically asked by them. And you check out, who else do you have to go to? How can I help you get this resolved? Okay. If we make the effort, we don't break the vow, whether they get their need resolved or not. It's being willing to use our own resources, time, money, whatever, to try to help them that protects the vow. So the mental affliction that breaks the vow, that motivates the behavior that breaks the vow, is stinginess. Attachment to our stuff, to our importance. It's related to pride, actually. Yeah, so Louisa says, what about people begging on the streets? Are they asking directly or not? No, they're not. Right? Even if they come up to you directly and say, would you give me money? You can ask them, am I your only hope? They might say yes, but there's another driver behind you. The thing is that when we get asked for help in in this other space where we're not their only hope. And maybe we have the perception, oh, you know, they're probably drunk or drug addicted. And if I give them the money, they're just going to go hurt themselves with drugs. So I won't give them the money because I don't want to contribute to them hurting themselves, is what we say in our mind. But deep down in our heart, we judge them in such a way, you know, they don't deserve my help because do you see, they're broken in some way. And it's delicate because you're right. You don't want to facilitate them drinking alcohol. That breaks a different vow. But we don't know for sure. Alternatively, instead of giving money, you know, give them your lunch. Give them a knit cap if it's cold. Have something in your card other than money to give them, and then offer it to them, and don't have your feelings hurt when they say, oh, no, thanks. I really just want money. Okay, it's like, okay, sorry. At this point, I can't do that, but check your heart. Geshe-la's point was always check our hearts. That if we're really not giving to try to protect them, then we're making good seeds by refusing them. But if we're just being stingy or scared of them, different seeds. Yes, Lisa.
Sorry, Lama, in those lines, on those lines, if it is someone close to you, and yes, you might be their last hope, but it has been a constant, how to call it, misbehavior, or like it sounds to be a bit abusive. Still,
Yeah.
it would be that we have to do it, because then it could be a dangerous thing for that person. Like, you know, like if you're trying to teach them also to take some responsibility, but at
Yeah.
the same time it reaches some point of no return, where if you don't help, then it might turn into something extremely dangerous. Then in that case, you should give, because it's there, you are the last hope.
Yeah, if you really are the last hope. And that's the hard question to answer. Maybe today you really are the last hope, but with further investigation, further, you know, finding, there is a government agency, or there is a, you know, someplace that by withholding your support and connecting that person to that agency or group, your tough love actually helps them better than your giving. But it does take judgment. And then somewhere along the line, it does take that strength of, you know, what they call tough love. And I don't know what that line is. But in terms of your bodhisattva vow, having that vow does put you in this position that if you really are the last resort for them, and the only resort is your personal resources, not some other way that you can get them help, then you should give to protect your vow. Just probably there's
Okay,
some other way, right?
thank you, Lam.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we were talking about material things. I will avoid giving the Dharma or material things. So not just now and then, this very specific circumstance. They've asked you, you're their only hope. Then for Dharma, to not give the Dharma still means withholding some aspect of your Dharma wisdom because you think, wrongly, of course, that somehow by sharing it, you'll lose something. By sharing your wisdom, you'll be seen as not higher than them anymore, or I don't know, see that somehow giving your wisdom to someone else makes you have less of it. It would be a real, right, misunderstanding, but it must happen. And it's like if you put yourself in the position of teacher and the teacher, oh, would ideally want their students to grow beyond them, like to grow in their wisdom, to grow in their goodness, to grow in their realizations, like even beyond the teacher. But then if the teacher still has ignorance in them, right, they're gonna feel like, whoa, my student knows more than me. Like the ego is gonna get in the way. And so, like in a very ugly, perverted way, the teacher might withhold something from a student that's like gaining realizations, but the teacher doesn't tell them that last little clue. Because when they do, right, that student's going to go off and get better than the teacher. Like for a bodhisattva, it doesn't make sense. They could never do that. But for someone who still has human ego, ignorance, what about me? We could see a mental affliction growing in that way. And it must have happened because we have it as a bodhisattva vow. Yeah. Okay. Mm. The mental affliction in both halves of these is attachment, clinging, possessiveness to either our materials, resources, or our position, right, related to the student, our position of perceived wisdom, possessiveness, which is why these two are both one vow, and we break it by doing either one. Doesn't take both. Okay, you with me? 6 to 7, 6 to 7. I went 13 minutes past our break time. I'm so sorry. Let's take a break. I'm back. So third, I will avoid the root downfall of failing to accept another's apology and striking another. So this one also has two parts. Either one breaks the vow. It doesn't take both. They are both motivated by the same mental affliction. That's why it's said to be one vow. So breaking the vow related to striking another person is a very specific situation that's related to the not accepting the apology, but not dependent upon. So it's a situation where someone has done something to you that you didn't like, and they've apologized for it, but you, the bodhisattva in the making, has stayed angry about them, angry towards them about that. And that anger builds up over time. And eventually, because of that anger that from before, that's grown, you get in a situation where you want to get back at them. And you hit them or throw something at them or get somebody else to do the same. The mental affliction is anger. This anger that's justified because we're sustaining it. We justify our anger when we continue to blame that other for the distress that we feel. Somebody does something, we feel hurt, we get angry. We blame them for hurting us that makes us angry. And we justify that even when they say, I'm so sorry, but we don't believe it, right? We expect they will do it again. And so we stay angry. And anger grows into that wish to what's retribution. And we hit them. Or get somebody else to hit them. To break this vow, that other being needs to be human. The one who gets hit that we're angry with is human. And the building up of the anger is a big part of breaking this vow. So the second half, it's actually the first half. I will avoid failing to accept an apology. In this situation, someone is apologizing for something that they did wrong to us, but we just refuse to accept their apology. So we stay angry. The refusing to accept the apology is this mental affliction that actually wants to keep the anger alive. There's something in us doesn't want them. They apologize, but we refuse to accept it so that we can stay angry with them. Do you see how unbodhisattva-ish it is? And so we think, oh, I couldn't do that. But watch out and see. Mm-hmm. So the breaking the vow is refusing to listen to their apology, right? They're apologizing. We're hearing it, but we're in our mind, we're going, they don't really mean it. I don't want to accept it. It's like we think that by accepting their apology, we're saying that what they did is okay. And it's not okay. But we have this misjudgment somehow that feels we need to protect ourselves from their future bad behavior by failing to accept their apology, because that means they didn't do wrong, and that means they can do it to me again. And that's not true. But we might have those beliefs born of past experience, both being hurt again and again, and past seeds of apologizing to somebody but doing the same thing again to them. If that can happen to us, it means we've done it. Not you and me, but this mind stream. So refusing to accept the apology. And the staying anger and hitting somebody are born of this anger that for some perverted reason we want to stay justified in keeping. And it's just hurting ourselves, of course, and coloring our behavior such that we could go on to totally break our bodhisattva vow. Fourth one, I will avoid the root downfall of giving up the greater way and teaching false dharma. Again, two in one. The greater way, of course, refers to the Mahayana. And the Mahayana, we know, has two great divisions, the teachings on emptiness and the teachings on bodhisattva activities, the method sign, which are also called the teachings on compassion. So to reject or give up the greater way means to disrespect the greater way, to put it down in the sense of saying, those teachings really can't help us in any way. The Buddha never taught them. Somebody else made it up. The Mahayana is invalid teachings. And again, it's like, who could be well trained enough to get bodhisattva vows and then say something like that about the Mahayana teachings? It's just like, I can't imagine it happening. But, seeds shift, seeds change. We hear things, right, from other people, and we misunderstand. And, there are Buddhist traditions that believe that the whole Mahayana was not taught by Buddha, it was taught by someone who came later, who added to the Buddha's teaching. And they don't believe any of the scriptures that are the Mahayana scriptures were actually taught by Lord Buddha, because all their lineage ever learned was the early sutras, the first turning of the wheel. And it's valid for them. And they have compassion and they have wisdom and they have love, but they don't have the Mahayana teachings as Buddhist teachings. They don't have bodhisattva vows, so they don't break bodhisattva vows by saying those Mahayana teachings are not Lord Buddha's. But then, we might find ourselves in a group that studies the sutra, right? And might come to see their logic and start to doubt. If we have our bodhisattva vows help protect us from that situation if we're following and tracking our vows, because we'd find ourselves in a situation like that and say, oh, wait a minute, right? I think I'm in with the wrong group. Bless you. You guys are wonderful, but excuse me. I need to go be with Mahayanas. The second half of the vow, teaching false dharma, means one is in the position of sharing, teaching the dharma with others. And this person, through their experience, comes up with their own interpretation of the teachings and then teaches that interpretation to others as if it was what was originally taught by Buddha. So Geshe Michael has taught us, teach the lineage purely. Teach the way you've been shared. Use the scripture, use the logic, teach what you've learned. When you have personal experience, share that according to how you might help others with it, but clearly identify, these are my experiences, these are my thoughts that came out of studying the scripture according to its pure lineage. So it's not the sharing one's own modernization of the teachings. It's the giving the giving the impression that this is what Buddha taught. That breaks the vow. If we understand that, if every generation that shares what they learned with the next generation, if each sharing gets twisted a little bit, it doesn't take very many generations before the teaching is so twisted up it won't work. Where I looked at it, if we call 25 years one generation, there have been 100 generations since Shakyamuni Buddha, 500 BC. You know, if there have been 100 different variations, then what we would be getting now would be, who knows what. When it's handed down as purely as possible, with these other clues as to how it pertains to the modern world at the time, then we have a lineage that continues to work, the teachings that continue to work for people. And so as teachers or soon to be teachers, it's important to make this clear distinction. This is what I've been taught. This is what I've experienced. And may my experience help you apply what you've been taught to gain your own experience. But then when you share with others, share it accurately. And to not do that, but rather to take one's own interpretation and say it's Buddha's, that's what breaks this vow. You see? All right. So to break the vow, we must know that we made it up. We like the idea, and we teach it to others as Mahayana Buddhism, and the others accept it. So actually, if you do all this and teach it to someone else and they go, oh, you're full of it, you don't break the vow, which is interesting. The other person's reaction contributes to whether you break your vow or not. Okay. The mental affliction here is ignorance. Number 5, I will avoid the root downfall of stealing what belongs to the 3 jewels. This one's a little confusing. The 3 jewels, Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, Sangha jewel, come on, those are not steal from a bull, are they? The Buddha jewel is the emptiness of the mind of a Buddha. You can't steal from that. So it doesn't mean that literally. It means stealing from Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, meaning your Dharma center, the resources or material things of the Dharma Center, or from the ordained people, not just Aryas would be Sangha Jewel, but anyone in one Sangha. So not even ordained people Sangha, but if you're involved in a Sangha, a group of people studying together, stealing from any one of them. Stealing from the center would mean, literally taking something that they have and making it yours. Geshe-la says by extension, not for breaking the vow, but for careful behavior, even breaking something that belongs to your Dharma center and not replacing it would be perceived by our own mind as a kind of stealing from the Dharma center. And of course is a serious negative karma. Stealing a Buddha image, stealing books, taking it. But to really break the vow, the state of mind needs to be, oh, there's that thing. I want it. It should belong to me, right? It would be beneficial for it to belong to me. And then either I get it or I get somebody to get it for me. And once I have it, we have that, this is mine. This is mine now. Do you see? So it's a very strong taking and keeping for oneself and having ownership. Again, with those 4 states of mind, you don't see it as wrong. You're happy you did it. You would do it again, and there's no shame. Right? So there'd be no doubt about it being right for you to take that Buddha image. The Dharma Center's got 6 of them. It'd be great for me to have it. Do you see? All right, so to break this vow, any one of those 3, taking a Buddha image, taking something else from the Dharma Center, or taking something not given from a Sangha member, any one of those with this wrong state of mind breaks the vow. It doesn't have to be all 3, of course. I'm looking for my note about what the mental affliction is there. Ignorant liking, right? I don't have it written down, but ignorant liking would be it. Willing to do something wrong to get what we want. Okay. Number 6, I will avoid the root downfall of giving up the highest dharma. So this is referring to any of the 3 levels of Buddha's teaching. Usually we think of the highest dharma as meaning the Mahayana. But the commentary explains that giving up any of the dharma levels is what this vow is meant to help us avoid. But what it means to give it up is very specific. So to clarify the 3 levels, the first is the dharma of the listeners, also known as Shravaka. And it's a track upon which practitioners are classically studying the teachings of the 4 Arya truths, right? The truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the cessation of suffering, and the truth of the path to get there. The second level is the group of what are called self-made Buddha, Pratyeka Buddha, that are neither self-made nor Buddha. Classically, they study the 12 links of dependent origination, the wheel of life. And then the third group is the Dharma of the Mahayana, who study all of those. So the vow is talking about giving up any one of these three. And of course, if you give up the Mahayana, you've given up the other two because they're included in it. The paths shared. So to give it up means this teaching was not spoken by Lord Buddha. That's what we heard before about giving up the Mahayana. Buddha didn't teach this. Right? It's hugely disrespectful. So this is the same. If this bodhisattva says to somebody that those four Arya truths, Buddha never taught that. Like, I can't imagine. Could you imagine? Or Buddha never taught the 12 links of dependent origination. Oh my gosh. Or Buddha never taught the Heart Sutra. Somebody else said that. Did seem like that. So to break the root vow, we're dismissing all of the teachings within each one of those categories, not some specific teaching within it. And again, it would be out of a mental affliction of ignorance in the sense of just not really knowing historically what Buddha taught and what Buddha didn't teach, but also ignorance of not understanding the seriousness of the seeds you're planting by hearing yourself say to somebody, Buddha didn't teach that. So it really, with these root downfalls, when we also apply those 4 states of mind, it's like, yo, I don't think I could break these 18. Like, they're not so hard to keep. As long as my good seeds carry me along in this same way, of course, which seeing myself keeping the vows will help me carry my goodness along. But if I get sloppy about it, who knows what could happen, right? One good flare-up of a mental affliction, and right, we could lose track. Geshe-la says, when we are tracking our vows, we can blanking out on the word, use the onion skin thing, right? No, we're not going to get close to the actual breaking of the bodhisattva vow, but work our way out. What's the most like mundane thing that I can avoid doing? That as long as I avoid that, I will never get close to inside. Yeah, concentric circles idea. So to honor, right, all of the Buddhist teachings is going to keep us out here, nowhere close to where we might say, Buddha never taught that. How come somebody's studying only that? Right? Again, we are so well trained. Thank you, Geshe Michael, that we can hardly conceive. Yay. Number 7, I will avoid the root downfall of taking away the golden robes and the rest and removing someone from the status of an ordained person. So the meaning underlying this is to avoid harming an ordained person in either of two ways, says the commentary. First, to physically remove their robes and take them away. Like an ordained person only has robes. So if you take an ordained person's robes away, you leave them naked in the street. And they don't have a home to run to full of closet full of clothes. So you leave them completely vulnerable. And the other way is to force them to disrobe, meaning force them to break a vow or to declare that they give their vows back. And, you know, when we take vows, you know, they're Bodhisattva vows, even at the cost of my life, I think we say. And, you know, what if we got in that horrible situation where we got arrested for being a Mahayana practitioner and they're holding the knife to your throat? Give back your vows, right? Or your toast. Seriously, would you say, I can't give back my vows? Kill me if you must. You know, I hope you don't, because it's bad karma for you. But I'm not giving up my robes. But on the other hand, you Bodhisattva monk or nun might recognize, well, if I tell this person I'll give up my vows, but deep in my heart, I'm not giving them up, then they won't kill me and I can live longer and maybe I can help that person come to see the truth. You know, in which case, sure, I'll give up my ordained vows to protect my bodhisattva vows so that I can live long enough to help you. You know, it's not black or white. Hopefully we never find ourselves or anybody else in that situation. Hopefully we also are never in a position where our hearts would be such that we would want to hurt an ordained person or disrobe them. It would take this ugly state of mind that sees them as some kind of threat or some kind of evil. A real ignorant disliking that out of anger we would want to hurt them. And probably the best, that's not right. The strongest way to hurt an ordained person would be to do something that would make their vow be damaged, which we just saw. Their four main ones are killing, stealing, sexual intercourse, lying about their spiritual practice, amongst others. Number 8, I will avoid the root downfall of committing any one of the 5 immediate misdeeds. Those 5 immediate misdeeds are deeds done, the karmic ripening of which will be your projection of yourself in the worst hell realm in the very next lifetime from the end of the life in which you did that deed. So you do one of the 5. At the end of that lifetime, directly to the worst hell. No, you have a bardo, but you don't have an in-between lifetime that we could, right? We can have negative seeds and some other seed is the projecting karma. And that negative seed from the lifetime stays for a while. And maybe it doesn't ripen for 16 more lifetimes before it sends you to the hell realm. Immediate misdeeds mean immediate next life, worst hell realm. Why? Because they are so seriously negative. What are they? killing one's mother, killing one's father. Sorry, killing one's father, least worst. Killing one's mother, second worst. Killing an arhat, someone who has overcome their mental afflictions and seeds for more due to seeing emptiness directly and learning to live according to them. Trying to draw blood from a Buddha with evil intent, trying to harm a Buddha, number 4, and causing a schism within the Buddha's Sangha, number 5. Like the worst of the worst is causing a schism in the Sangha. But causing a schism in Buddha Shakyamuni's Sangha, in which those two great disciples come and fix it within 24 hours. I think we've studied this. So technically, nowadays, because Buddha Shakyamuni and his Sangha are not walking this earth that we are directly aware of, we cannot do misdeed number 5. It's great negative karma to cause a schism in any group of people, let alone a group of Dharma practitioners, but it's not breaking this vow. Then we also are protected from not being able to do the 4th worst, no, second worst, trying to draw blood from Shakyamuni Buddha, from a Buddha, with evil intent. You know, he goes to the medical lab, gets blood drawn, that's not breaking the vow. But killing mother, killing father, killing arhat. Now, you know, our minds go, do you have to know they're an arhat to break the vow? I think so. You know, you would have to know it's your mother, know it's your father, or would you? But to fully break the vow, remember, I think it's the right thing to do. I'm happy about it. I'd do it again, and no shame. So these immediate misdeeds, it's not clear to me if those 4 apply to them or not. Logically, they must. But regardless, just avoid them, right? Avoid killing any human. And you won't kill your mother, you won't kill your father, and you won't kill an arhat. And then do our best to avoid killing or contributing to killing to any life. And we reduce our seeds to even be in a position where we might kill mother, father, arhat. Do you see our concentric circles? Number 9, just in time. I will avoid the root downfall of holding wrong views. Holding wrong views here refers to 2 classical wrong views. The first is denying karma. The second is denying past and future lifetimes. So of course, there's a whole lot more wrong view in what's called wrong view. But what breaks the bodhisattva vow is to have known about the laws of karma, the 4 laws of karma, and then because of, well, I'm not sure what, we apply our reasoning and our experiences, and we come to a clear conclusion that it cannot be true that a kind deed must bring a pleasant result, and an unkind deed must bring an unpleasant result. You know, we could kind of see how we might get to that if in life, every time we're kind to somebody, they're mean to us back again. It could happen. couldn't it? If we have the seeds of having been nasty to anybody who was nice to us before. And if it was always like that, how would anybody ever convince us that no, those two are not related? Yeah, but every single time I'm nice, they're mean to be back. Like every single time? Well, there was this one time that somebody wasn't mean. Ah, right? That's enough to prove it. But it wouldn't prove it, would it? If our experience was no, everybody's nasty, everybody's mean to me, it doesn't matter what I do. Do you see how this could kick in? Hopefully not once we're well trained enough to apply our logic and check our behavior and do our 4 powers, etc. Okay. When we don't understand that the consequences of our behavior match the circumstances of it, we will justify doing anything that we want to get what we want, whether it works or not. And that means karmic consequences, are not running the show here. Wrong view. Because then it doesn't matter what we do. The second is denying the existence of past and future lifetimes. Because that leads us to the same conclusion. Well, if I just have this one lifetime, then, I should do everything I can to get the happiness that I want in this lifetime, because in the end, it's just gone. Done. So there's no reason to discipline ourselves to a certain behavior to get a result that might come 16 lifetimes from now. On the other hand, we really can only, until we have some direct experience of past or future lifetime, or some direct experience of the truth of kindness brings pleasure and unkindness brings unpleasure, we're at the mercy of logic and faith. So we're not meant to just buy the truth of karma and buy the truth of past and future lifetimes without learning the logic and applying ourselves to it to convince ourselves to try to live by it, of the benefits of trying to live by it. Don't just take it on faith. But don't flat out reject it. That's what breaks the vow. To somehow come to the conclusion, that karmic, those 4 laws of karma, no way. No way are they true. Like it's just cuts the vow. Past, future lifetimes, before I used to think it was true, or maybe it was true, but now I see, nah, not possible, right? Flat out reject is what breaks the vow. Doubt is fine. Doubt is healthy. Don't leave it, right? We have other vows to not let our doubt lie. But, right, don't beat yourself up for wondering, I'm not sure about this karma thing. Sometimes. Okay. So to break this bodhisattva vow, we have to come to this firm conviction of one or the other of these negations and declare that we don't believe in either of them. Right, so this one isn't one or the other that breaks the vow, it's both, because they go together. If you don't believe in karma, then past and future lives doesn't make sense. If you don't believe in past and future lives, karma doesn't make sense either. Okay, they go together. All right. So I encourage you to memorize these first 9 root downfalls in those words. I will avoid the root downfall of blah, 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 so that you can rattle them off. And that you have them in the reading, I think in your student notes as well. The verbiage of them, hopefully make them easy for yourself to say and understand. All right. So remember that person we wanted to be able to help. We learned a lot this class that we will use to help them stop their suffering forever. And that's an extraordinary goodness. So please be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy guide. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please, please stay close, to continue to guide you and inspire you and help you protect your bodhisattva vows when you get them if you don't have them. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it, and then carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there, their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the 2 ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person, to share it with everyone you love, to share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with happiness, filled with loving kindness, and may it be so. Thank you so much again for the opportunity. Always helps me to hear these again.